Merry Meet, Annie here. This video is part of my This Witch's Way series, and it is on offerings. And it's also going to be a video response to Rodriguez-Mystic, who is Seth, who inspired this one. So I will also be using it as a response to him. And you've got to watch his video. There's nothing that I'm going to offer here that will be anywhere near as interesting as his is, both about his personal experiences and also historical information, and very interesting, both of his experiences and his knowledge about different paths and offerings. So I was thinking about offerings from, one of the things that intrigued me is that Seth had mentioned that offerings, he has experience with traditional Wicca, that offerings is not a big thing within that. So I was thinking about it, and I certainly think that it is. And I realize it's probably one of those things, again, it's more about semantics, what one might call this or that. And one thing I do not think, and this will just come from my teachers and the specific path, the specific tradition that I followed, is that there was nothing about making offerings that was in any way an imitation of making sacrifices. And I remember even having conversations, the whole circle together during witch salon nights, where we would sit around and have a topic and just yatter about it all night long. And I remember this was indeed a night, or maybe more than a night, that we discussed this kind of thing, and the history of sacrifices and what that might mean, and was a sacrifice you made personally equivalent to that. And it just didn't ever feel that way to me and mine, because sacrifices seem to be offered to placate, to do a deal with, to satisfy the appetite of the deities that they were made to. And very understandable. And of course, throughout history, almost all of our religions at some point had some form of this. And I'm not denying that as part of ancient, shall we say, ancient paganry, my name for it. But in the traditional rites and things that I learned to do to honor the deities of the Wicca, offerings were more coming from a place of gratitude, of offering something, to offer up a like to like. I'm offering up this thing because both you and I will recognize this, and it then creates a bond between man and God. Definitely the offering of things as thanksgiving acts of devotion, in the sense of offering from the heart. If I think something's beautiful, I think you might too. If it pleases me, I'm hoping that it pleases you. There are lots of reasons for making offerings. So I was thinking about, if we look at traditional rite and the things in the rite that I consider to be offerings. The rite itself, and Seth mentioned that, the rite itself is seen as an offering. Taking the time to do it. And if you're a traditional Wiccan, to do it a certain way, to do it in a certain series of actions, a certain flow, out of respect to those who have done it as you are doing it, as a notion that the deities you are worshiping expect it a certain way. So the rite itself as an offering, as something done out of respect, that to me is a powerful, the entire rite as an act of offering. That as a traditionalist, it's even for my small rites that I do for myself, there's a certain process I follow, and there is a certain way that I will do it. And it's not because I'm anal and have to do it that way. It is more that there is a pattern that I offer as part of doing it a way. That to me it's my personal fingerprint, and it's something that my deities recognize, that there's Annie doing her thing. I don't mean that they wouldn't recognize if I just went out there and held my hands up to the sun, or jumped into the ocean and let water carry me away. I'm saying that when rite is done intentionally a certain way, that it is an offering. Amongst the other things, it is. I was thinking, what would I think are the most poignant moments during rite that would be considered acts of offering? And traditional rite at the beginning, where we offer our deities all that is in between our hands, all that is between our hands. So the very act of offering our body, of making ourselves naked and vulnerable and open to the experience, trusting in the experience explicitly, actually offering ourselves, our physical, mental, emotional, energetic, and spiritual selves. That's one of the most powerful offerings that was coming to mind when I was thinking what offerings would be. I do make offerings to my deities, not set things. As I've come to know the deities that I honor over the years, they like certain things. They respond to certain things. I could make an offering to a deity I didn't have a relationship with out of respect. It would simply be an act of respect. But in the deities that I use in my practice, I've come to know what they kind of vibrate to, what I feel a positive response to. I know what they like. Found items, if you're taking a walk, a mundane walk around the neighborhood, and you find a beautiful feather or a new stone or beautiful perfect autumn leaf or a blossom, and you offer it, you're offering them your wonder, your appreciation, your gratitude for being here in this world, I mean part of creation. And you're offering it in thanks. So offering the small things that I would lay before, certain incenses they like, certain stones they like, it can be endless and it varies, and they don't demand it, but in my case, my relationship with them, they are either pleased by it or I need to know I have done something which pleases them, whichever direction that kind of thing comes from. Making an offering of the offerings in traditional rite, the water and the salt are taken to all the quarters, and the fire and the incense are taken to all the quarters, and there's a powerful act of offering there, which is the solidification of the sphere that you're standing in by you've sanctified and blessed these items, and they are the tuning fork vibration that you're offering up, so that you have that vibration to the elemental energy and to the guardians. It's kind of an offering up of what is sacred. I have a hard time finding words to describe it more than that. You have elevated the mundane from your existence, your physical existence, to a level of the sacred, and then you offer it up, knowing that you've done this, that you've created this thing that is so mundane, this water and this salt, that you are offering it as something that is no longer water and salt. And it's a connection to the energies of the other side, I guess is the only way I can think to put that. There's the offerings from cakes, whatever the fluid is, according to the time of year. It could be milk or fruit juice, wine, water, ale, mead. There's so many things we can offer. All the different kinds of things that cakes can be, whether it's fruit or bread or something sweet or any of the things it could be. The fruits of our harvests, it can be anything. Offerings there are definitely, to me, two things. Gratitude, once again, that we can make an offering, that we have enough abundance in our life at the symbolic level to make an offering. And the other thing is an acknowledgement of there is a source for these things. So the offering recognizes these things are in existence because of a source, because of life, because of death and rebirth, in the sense of what our crops and the things that we grow bring to us. And so in that case, the offering is gratitude that we can make the offering, and also gratitude for the source from which those offerings, that life came. And the offering we make after circle, we take what's left over when we bless the cakes with wine, and at the end of the circle we offer some of that in whatever way we or our circle does that by habit. It's a way of taking something from that sacred experience that we offered, that we experienced in our circle, and bringing it into the world that we live in, the world we know, that place we return to, and making the offering to the goddess and offering up what's left over from that. It's a way of honoring that while the circle is gone, that we are honoring that within the world that we live in, the sacred lives on. We're never really separate from either the mundane or the sacred. So I had those thoughts on what offering would be. Now Seth mentioned about offerings like taking on a donation or charitable work or something on behalf of the deities. And circles I've been to, and even my own circle, have certainly taken on those kinds of things, and I probably am not eyeballing them the same way as offerings. They are acting in accord, which to me is another thing altogether. It is following on the energy and the inspiration and the result of the work that we've done in circle, and then taking on the acts which solidify that. So I would see that kind of thing, the making donations of time or money or volunteering, donating products. I would see all that as acting in accord, in keeping with the promise made in circle. So I do see that as slightly. And I think this might be the last thing that he mentioned that I thought I would respond to, which is he asked if any of us make offerings to local spirits or places, spirits of place, or even our house spirits, which are two very different things, obviously. I do both. I have kind of a, I don't know if we're going to give it a name, which I've never actually tried to give it a name. I have a house elemental that is contained within the walls of my house, the way you would contain an elemental that you created. It's not contained because I have made it be contained within the four walls of my house. It is contained because that's where it wants to be. And it is a spirit of my home only. And it can't exist outside of the four walls of my house. And I have always intentionally created that as part of becoming one with whatever home or apartment I'm living in. And I've always done that. And it doesn't require a lot to maintain it, except for, in my case, a belief that the home should be treated respectfully and be a pleasant place to be in, both at the emotional level. It should be clean. It should be well taken care of. Candles lit in every room every now and then. Incense to bless every room. A couple times a year there's that kind of thing that I do. There is tending for the physical structure of the home, taking good care of it. All of it would be a house spirit to me. House spirit to me feels like it grows up, even if you are not aware that it's growing up within your home, and it reflects the energy of the home, but becomes an entity in its own right. So I do have a relationship to the idea of house spirit. And I enjoy when I'm in other people's houses, feeling. You know, if you step into someone's house, there's a certain welcome feeling you get just as soon as you cross the threshold. There's also times you don't feel welcome, even though you're fond of the person who lives there. It's an interesting energy to get to know and to experience what's in your own home. So yes, house spirits are something that I would say make offerings in many different ways, mostly in creating a situation where the home, the shell in which the house spirit resides, is in a way a temple, and I treat it like it is a temple. The other thing was making offerings to local spirits of place. And that is something that I have taken on especially probably in the last 10 years. My backyard has a certain personality, my front yard has a certain personality. Walking my neighborhood, my entire neighborhood has a personality, and I do feel spirits of place. And there are certain places that feel like the center of a particular energy. And it's interesting because I don't as often make offerings to that as it presents me with something, that beautiful, unexpected, found thing. The walking around the neighborhood and meeting a child that's playing in the street and spending time with that child unexpectedly, not a child you know, and everything that comes out of that moment, the finding of that special feather on a walk around the backyard, or in the fall, that perfect leaf, something that it almost feels like spirits have placed to me have given me more than I think I've given them. And the only thing I can do to balance that is when I find something, I am extremely grateful, and I verbalize it and I make it clear. I tend to carry pebbles, I've mentioned this in other videos, so that I can leave something in exchange for when I find something. But if not, I believe my very gratitude in acknowledging how special something as small as finding a special feather or stone, or knowing that there's something special about my noisy suburban backyard, or even the front yard, which is full of all the noises of the neighborhood and the hubbub of people who walk up and down the sidewalk and in and out my front door, and you know, the very energy of the postman coming to make deliveries is part of the spirit of my land, my little plot of land. So to me, it's not so much offerings there as it is receiving offerings. It's just the way that energy always seems to be for me. And then me being very grateful and making it clear to Spirit that I am so grateful that you've given me this small gift, and I treasure it because it is huge in many ways. So there are some thoughts I had on various bits and pieces of offerings. Very interesting topic. Thank you, Seth, and thank you for that amazing video. I really enjoyed it, as I enjoy everything you do, but I learned so much from that one. I was like, stay tuned, and I learned so much, and I appreciated your viewpoint on things. So I wish you all mirth and reverence. Merry part.